Welcome to Good Game, your no BS insights for crypto founders.
So how is just kind of the, oh man, TradFi AI-based stuff is pumping. How does
To get exposure.
How do I get exposure in crypto? And like, it just became the consensus pick. But the problem is obviously, people like it because they can farm a lot of Tau, get paid to basically like improve their models. And so
When you see a lot of traders talking about it, that's when you...
Am I the exit liquidity? No, yeah.
I'm now a community.
I saw that with Tron, with the son of memes.
Oh yeah, the new his pump fund.
Yeah, pump fund on Tron. So every trader's talking about it right now.
Oh wow.
The son of memes. That's the name of the product.
Yeah,
It's
son of memes or something like
Yeah,
that.
you got to lean into it, honestly. Like
It's
so. I
go
think,
to the sun. It's like instead of going to the moon, you're going to the
oh,
sun.
that's so good. You're gonna get burned. Damn. I mean, at least they're being like correct.
Well, at least it's being transparent.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we jump into the episode, a quick reminder that the early application deadline for Alliance's All 14 cohort is tomorrow. Be sure to get your application in by the end of the day on August 28th at alliance.xyz.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
I know him then. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's
You
from
on
Texas,
TikTok
right?
a lot or
He's-
what?
Yeah, my TikTok is either soccer and comedian
Oh, nice. Awesome.
or cooking. It's-
Thirst traps.
Nice. Yeah.
You don't use TikTok
You
for
don't want to
that.
admit that at all. Yeah. We look at this for you. It is like, no, there's no comedy on this.
Yeah. No soccer.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that funny TikTok video of? I have it, but it's an Asian dude and he's
The Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
the Gen Z Gen Alpha.
No.
He's saying, "Oh, this is so funny."
Although I was at a dinner earlier this week and one of my friends, she started like a Gen Z like mental wellness app. And so she talks to Gen Z a lot. And she was showing me words that they like had started telling her. And I was like, what are these words? Apparently they love grok. You know, like the guy from Avengers or whatever.
Yeah.
Groot.
Yeah.
Grok.
Yeah. Groot, yeah. Sorry, Fox. See, I'm fucked. Damn, I'm gonna get canned. And then
We
they
have that in recording.
yeah, fuck, don't record. And then there's Skippity or something.
Skibbity.
like
That's Gen Alpha.
that? Okay. What is Skippity?
It's from we're good. Skibbity toilet. It's like
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, you guys know what that is. It's like a mini series, and it came from a game. And I guess they took one of the characters, cut his head off, and they put it on a toilet,
What?
What?
and like it became a meme.
Yeah.
I think I forgot the name of the game, and then they started making a series out of it. It
Well,
became a
apparently the
meme.
word means either good or bad, and then we're like, how does that make any sense? And then they're like, oh, it's like cooked, getting cooked, or like cooking. And I was like, damn, I hate that I understand this right now.
But like it's a different word, right? There's
yeah. Or
past
sick.
tense is bad.
Sick is good or bad.
Yeah.
Then we're like, wait, is every word good or bad?
or English or Spanish.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
No.
It's the hottest meme on okay, so there you go.
I heard another thing of Ohio. Is this
Ohio.
Right?
Ohio, yeah.
That's
Ohio's
so
another
Ohio,
one.
which is so insulting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I felt like even before then, Ohio was pretty insulting.
I don't know if you guys watch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
guess
guys watch
that's why it works.
Euro. The final of the European Championship was Spain versus England,
Yeah.
and I almost tweeted
Spanish or English.
English or Spanish, but I was like, no one understands it.
Yeah.
Where it came from is there's this famous streamer, and he goes up to people and says, "If you move, you're gay." But it turns out,
No, it goes English or
Everyone's
Spanish.
Oh, I
No,
see
no,
that
but-
guy, and then they just vote.
but most of the people were Spanish. So
Yeah.
then he went to first he asked them English or Spanish,
Yeah,
and then he would say it, "If you move, you're gay."
yeah.
English or Spanish.
Whoever moves first is good.
Yeah.
And then people start responding in Chinese
Yeah. I
or
love it.
Portuguese, and then the guy's like, "Fucked."
Yeah.
Damn, you guys are plugged in then. I mean, this makes sense why Alliance is crushing so much. You guys are just going straight to the source.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like where we are in crypto is like a very interesting like time frame. We have like a bunch of like infra projects that have raised capital. Now people are pretty upset, it seems like. And then like we're starting to see the rise of consumer. How do you guys see it? Like what's interesting for you guys?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that true? Like Are there better?
People are always going to be upset, first of all.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't pay any mind to that, honestly. People have always been upset in crypto, except unless like prices hitting all-time highs and going like straight through it, right? So yeah, I'd say like stay off the timeline a little bit more.
Cool.
Because
Yeah. I mean, the divergence in prices, right? You have so much of the community saying, oh, when bull market, meanwhile, Bitcoin just went on an absolute tear. And so, a lot of stuff's doing well, but not a lot of people are necessarily doing well. And so it's created a lot of frustration from those that haven't to, finger point and find a scapegoat.
So it's all about price at the end of the day, like macro price.
Yeah. I mean, from the sentiment perspective, yeah.
Sure.
On the venture side, it's tricky because you have there's the people that play the early stage game and then people that are playing the late stage game. And late stage game is, part of it is you're investing to deploy capital and you're running the management fee side, right? And that's where like your performance doesn't really drive as much of the returns as the management fees do. And so you have that driving the valuations. And also, I think there's big appetite to invest in these, low to mid 9-figure vals relative, which, by all accounts is expensive in terms of what the projects have delivered, especially when you compare to traditional venture. But I think that the difference is you have like a much higher probability of getting some kind of liquidity, right? And so people are going to take a lot more swings at rich vals because there is a path versus it being this kind of binary, this is a dud or I get a really big exit. And so I think that drives the appetite to kind of invest in those rounds. But yeah, it's, people are learning painfully that there isn't really demand for a lot of the stuff in size. And that's trailing price. I mean, we need apps, right? Like that's really where you start getting a lot more of the consumer side. And so I'm excited on that front, from gaming, from some other areas as well. I think ideally that's going to onboard the next, 10,000, 100,000 users rather than thinking about it as like, how do we onboard the next million, like 20 million, I think.
Yeah. And I think like people in crypto are so like catalyst focused. They're always looking and they'll like think about every negative that could potentially happen. I think one thing that people are really bad at in this space is like factoring in like positive surprises, right? So for example, obviously last cycle we were very close to Axie, helped design it, like work with that team very closely. And even us being that close to it, it positively surprised us, right? Like we had no idea it was gonna go that crazy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people who maybe aren't talking to builders every day, talking to, people building all these apps, like obviously you guys are super close to it, but even you guys, I think like will be, positively surprised on, Fantasy Top or something like that, where it's like, wow, this actually worked out how we, theoretically wanted it to. And I think that's like something.
Surprised every time.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I think what you mentioned is really important point. It's probably one of the most important lessons I learned in the last 3 years investing at the very earliest stage, which is that you should stop thinking about what could go wrong. Instead, because that's the instinct, like for the vast majority of venture investors, their first instinct when they see a pitch is, here are some of the reasons that could go wrong. But what you really should be thinking about is, what if everything goes right,
100%.
How big it could get, right?
Yeah, and I think there's two ways to think about it too. One is so many people in the world are trying to make things not go wrong, right? Like for us, we're obviously subject to a lot of like macro conditions and everything like that. Our market is still tiny on the grand scheme of things. So, when people are like, oh man, like, if this macro stuff happens, we're fucked. It's like, no. This macro stuff happens, the bigger market is even more fucked, and those people don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So that's one part. And then the other part is, and I think you see this every day, the incentives in crypto are very kind of like well aligned, where builders have an opportunity to, make a huge impact, get a lot of users, and make a lot of money if they're right.
Yeah.
So, you guys have been in New York for the past couple of weeks. I'm sure as you're talking to these builders, one thing you see is like, just like the hustle, the grind, like every single one of these builders is working day and night to make their app like the breakout app. And we don't need all of them to be successful. You need one or two. And I think that's like, that's what makes me like very optimistic. And, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but like I'm a permabull, so just like not financial advice.
I'm a permabull.
I've been wrong many months in a row, right? But honestly, like, I'm like as bullish as I can get, always. And I know the timeline is very different, but that's why I really don't pay attention that much. Yeah.
What verticals are you guys excited about?
You go first, you want?
Yeah, I think there are three that we've been seeing in investment committee more and more, and we're still deploying. And I think our investment committees have only gotten more and more interesting. The way that like our like process really works at Delphi is like, we call ourselves one of the slower funds because our investment process takes minimum 2 weeks, which, right now doesn't seem bad, but like in a bull market, 2 weeks is like, you're gonna definitely not lose a lot of deals. But the way that it works is like, obviously our ventures team has a lot of incentives to, get the deal passed. They'll bring in a deal, basically shill it to, us as partners and, the team in general. And then week 2, we kind of bring in a lot of the people, from the research side who have expertise on that specific domain or subject and almost have like a debate within the team. And I think our investment committees have been super interesting over the past few months as we've looked at less and less deals, but talked about them more and more. And I think some spaces, and Jan brings up gaming. That's obviously one that we've always been focused on. It hasn't played out like to the degree that we want right now, but I think games take a while. I'll let Jan really handle that because like we have this thing at Delphi called Shit on Delphi Day, which is basically like we try and do it like once every quarter. Sometimes it'll go every 6 months, but if we ever do like a retreat or in person, we always do it. Where basically it's a day where no one can say anything good about Delphi within the team. So we basically like only shit on everything that we do and try and like improve from that. And you can call for a specific sector. So, at the end of last year, our other partner, Jose and I were like, hey, we think we are more than allocated to gaming. We've invested a lot. Like at this point, if it works out, like we're gonna have good exposure. But if it doesn't, like we're just piling money fucking away right now. So we called like a Shit on Delphi Gaming Day. And, Jan and Pierce were like, bet, all right, like we're going to come prepared. And they basically did something really cool where not only was it with the team, they brought up a bunch of our portcos on as well. And they kind of presented like, and remember, this is like end of last year. This is like pre-Celestia. So like, the real bull or like the upward trend hadn't really started yet. So this is kind of like bottom of the bottom. And, talking to all the gaming portcos who honestly were building in a silo of just like, very focused on what they were working on. And talking about what problems they were either trying to solve or, had solved and then sharing that with our other portcos was like really cool to see. And then honestly, that made me kind of like feel very, it made Jose and I like very comfortable with our gaming exposure. And we're like, all right, maybe we can get more. Cause like, we were super impressed with the builders there. And I think they're building from all different angles. So, one example I'll give right now is, and I'm sure Jan has like a bunch more, but maybe 2 that I really like talking about is like GG.zip, which just kind of like launched like a small trial this month. I don't know if you guys...
That's the location-based.
Yeah, it's like Solana location, almost like Pokemon Go. I think,
GG. Oh,
GG.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential there. It's obviously very ambitious and very hard to do, but I think some concept like that is going to work. And obviously we hope it's GG.zip. We have bags, obviously.
You guys invested like a couple of years ago in that project, or is it recent?
Right? Yeah. And it was really, it's really interesting to me, right? So at its core, I think crypto is like this giant human coordination tool, and I think like right now we've played in like the digital space a lot, but what I'm really excited about is bringing that to the physical space because I think that's when people outside of crypto will start noticing. Saying GG.zip, they play a game in a week or a day, and you see like 800 people like all like run through Central Park or go to like a specific coffee store and say the same order or, some dumb stuff like that. I think that can get a lot of like mainstream kind of attention. And you could kind of like use that to do some productive things, whether it's like, oh, everyone, photo yourself giving like a homeless guy some food or something like that.
There's Music Map too, right? Or Soundmap?
Music Map. You want to talk about it's Soundmap. You want to talk about it? Or I can talk about it. So it's like it's an app that one of our founders told me about yesterday, and it's like a Pokemon Go, but instead of collecting Pokemon, you collect music, individual songs and real songs by famous artists, musicians like Taylor Swift or whatever, and it's growing like crazy. It's like
that's crypto too.
It's not crypto. It's a pure Web 2. But it can totally be built on crypto because those songs in that app are traded. There's a secondary market.
No way.
And people trade the songs. You can already think, oh, these songs can be in the form of NFTs and trade with each other. But people really love collecting music of their favorite musician.
Yeah.
And that is the like Pokemon. I think there's slightly different psychology. Like Pokemon is like nostalgia.
Yeah.
But collecting music is like feeling closer to to Taylor Swift, for example.
I can talk about music stuff for a while too. Like I've been, it's a big passion for me. Like really love it. I DJ as well, so I've been like really into like the crate digging and everything like that too. I spent some time diving deep in the music world right around like a few years ago we bought this Disclosure NFT.
Yes, I remember.
So we ended up getting like we became really good friends with those guys. Ended up being able to go to like all their concerts, have them, throw parties with us and stuff too. And one thing I learned from working and talking to them who are successful artists is just like how fucked the music industry is. And you obviously hear this a lot. But I think like, we come from the TradFi world. They're like, it was very easy for crypto to kind of like cross over because their incentives are financial, right? So like if they can make money, they're going to be open to it. I think one thing I realized thinking about the music world is there's so many gatekeepers and money is not their number one priority. Their number one priority is like power and ego. And it was like almost like negotiating with a terrorist every time that like I started talking to, music crypto startups and stuff like that. And one thing that I think like building any startup in crypto is hard, right? It's like, building a plane while like while you're flying, while you don't know what the weather is.
Yep.
But I think like music crypto founders, like they actually have the hardest possible thing because you have to be ready to go to war, right? With all the licenses, with all the copyright, like all this stuff that like gets in the way. So yeah, I mean, I still every now and then will bring like a music deal. Like I know I was talking to Joey at Crate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like flipping it on its head, and I know you guys were involved in that. And I always try and bring this stuff to IC just so we can talk. But I don't think we've done a music deal in a while.
What do you think about music NFTs? I mean, obviously we see what the market thought of it, but
yeah,
is that?
I think it will exist in some way, shape, or form. And
more like a capital, maybe a fundraising tool for early artists, right? Where they can sell future royalties or something like that to help bootstrap themselves in that sense. I think there's like a small venture style kind of investment that fans can make and be rewarded for being early and finding promising artists. But
yeah,
it's hard to do the prominent artist kind of component.
I feel like that's out of the picture.
Yeah.
I don't think so, actually. I think there is. So one thing, so, I'm like angeled in Royal because like Justin's a friend. And I've told him this many times. Like, I think actually that is not the best way. Like most fans don't care about buying music and stuff, but the irrational super fandom, like, you say you're really into music too. I spend like an ungodly amount on like the artists that I love, right? And so I think that super fandom is where you can actually get a lot of benefit. Like you see Taylor Swift right now, right? She's always such a good example on the other end of the spectrum, or like a Drake or a Kanye and stuff like that. I think these people have immense power to extract more value, not extract more value, but, get more value from their super fans who are more than happy to give it to them. And you see them, when Kanye makes shoes or something like, or shirts and stuff like that, the fans are like, hey, I'll buy it just to support. And I think those types of things are, it's always sad to me that, no musician has become like a billionaire off music, because I think music is like super impactful to culture. And I think culture is like, and I think that's also a thesis that I have in crypto, is that crypto is going to allow people to unlock like the value of culture in a way that hasn't really been able to be done before. And I think, meme coins are a little bit, parallel to that as well. But yeah, I think the super fandom is where I'm most interested. So yeah, if anyone's building in that like era, that's like the little niche that I really like.
Yeah, maybe more as a kind of a permission thing, where it's like, you hold a certain amount of these assets and you get access that people wouldn't have otherwise. I think.
Or not even so. Everyone thinks of NFTs as things that you like sell and everything. I think, for me, NFTs, like at the end of the day, are all about their story. And I think, back in the day or last cycle, most NFT stories were just the price that were paid. That's a pretty bad story, to be honest, right? That's why I think, the Disclosure NFT was such a cool one, because, not only did we win it, we ended up becoming friends with them, ended up using, ended up throwing like parties with them for crypto people, right? And everything like that. Ended up recording a pod, ended up helping them, do NFTs and stuff. So I ended up building this whole relationship where price is the smallest part of that story. I think in some of these like big artists, we were talking to like the Weeknd's team for a bit, and there's still some potential here too, but it's kind of like early days. But one of his first albums was like Trilogy, which like is a cult favorite of like his fan base, right? And the cool part about it is they had all this, they had like a shop set up when he was first coming out, before he even really sold tour tickets or anything. So they have all this data on who bought EXO like hat or hoodie during that era. From 10 years ago.
How?
Just from their site. right?
Okay.
So one thing that we were kind of like working with them, and an idea that we kind of like gave was, doing a kind of like intimate show for this concert where, sure, you sell 1,000 tickets, right, and make it gamified with like, top 10 bidders get to like, go to dinner and listen to the next album, whatever, like top 100 get like a signed vinyl, whatever. But then the other part is like, you could do another 1,000 tickets, so it's like still 2,000. This guy plays like 60,000, people venues right now, so 2,000 is like extremely intimate, and in a very like engaging experience. Especially for an album that he doesn't even perform anymore, right? That his fans would kind of die over. The other 1,000 tickets you kind of like airdrop to people from that last era. So, imagine waking up one day and you being like, oh, remember you bought this hoodie 10 years ago and you've been an early The Weeknd fan? You get a free ticket for you and your friend to come to this show that he's doing in New York or LA or Toronto or whatever.
It's like gamifying the ticketing slash...
And I think this data, like most artists don't have this data, which is the problem, and I think needs to be fixed. But an artist like that who has that data, I think it's like almost a crime or insult that you're not doing something with that data, right? So I think like the music NFTs for these big artists, like they already have a lot of money, etc. Like what they can be used for is giving it and rewarding people, and making that bond and community way stronger. And think about that story that they're gonna, tell afterwards, where it's like, oh, like, literally he didn't owe me anything. I bought that hoodie with my own money. I got the hoodie from it, $49, whatever the fuck, right? And now 10 years later, I'm being rewarded for being this early of a fan. I think this type of stuff is going to be really interesting, and I think crypto is going to play a big piece of it.
But yeah, going back to the kind of the initial question of areas we're excited about. And
sorry. Music is not an area we're too excited about. I'm personally excited, but Delphi's definitely not, been big in there.
It's hard to invest in it.
Good, yeah.
But no, I think gaming's still going to be a big one. What kind of went right, what kind of went wrong early on. I think the strengths of crypto are a double-edged sword here, and particularly in terms of, the initial liquidity and the over-financialization. That is going to be what helps, really propel a really good game. But I think when it's introduced too early in a game's life cycle, which is what we saw, with a lot of these games, actually to some extent, yeah. But even like a lot of these earlier ones where, but I agree with Axie where, in order for the liquid economy to flourish, there needs to be a good amount of demand that's offsetting the supply. And in order for that demand to be there, a lot of the game loops have to be built out. And so when it's introduced before the game loops are built out, you kind of have that mismatch, and you get the ebbs and flows where it really rips. That creates a lot of kind of artificial demand, and then when the kind of the pure mercenary capital leaves, you have this glut of supply of whatever assets are in the game. And so
so when a gaming project pitches you, what do you look for? What constitutes an interesting game?
Yeah. So one of the one needs to be table stakes at this point is there needs to be a way for people to play without needing to touch crypto.
Okay.
So I think you can introduce crypto as a tool in the future to say you've played X amount. Here's something you can claim for free as an NFT that you could sell. Not you need to own you have to have a wall. You have to have ETH. You need these assets to even play. To create that barrier to entry is really a mistake. Part of what makes free to play so successful is the free to play element, right? There's no barrier. You download, you're playing, and then you throw in the hooks kind of thing. Here you can the on-chain assets that you own are huge carrots, and so you can offer them without requiring people requiring people to have on-chain assets to play the game. So I think that's first
Pixels
and foremost.
Was one of them, right?
Sorry,
Pixels was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've done well.
Are you guys investors in Pixels?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. They've done pretty well.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's definitely one of them. Obviously the game needs to be fun. I think the standards for what is considered fun have gone up, right? Because before it's always a combination of, you're assigning weights to different inputs, and fun for a while when all gaming projects were ripping was less important. It's like, all right, can I see there being demand? Is it addicting? Yada, yada, yada. And so I think there's been a bigger emphasis on, is this a fun game that I can play? Gaming's a really competitive kind of field, and games don't last forever, right? They have a peak, and then they kind of slowly fade off as people have gone through the game and are replaying certain loops. So replayability is a really big one, right? Where part of that is the competitive side. So there needs to be a well-designed competitive kind of environment, because that's what keeps people coming back, and really, a game that's well-balanced is important. So there's that element. If you're like certain games, part of the thesis is the fact that they can be played on really low-end devices. So that's a big one, where now you can start to target a really large audience in certain regions in the world that they're operating off very cheap kind of hardware.
What about the opposite, like the AAA games? Do you think there is an intersection between those and crypto?
Yeah. So one we're very excited about is Off the Grid. Gonzilla. We honestly we heard about it a while ago, didn't invest a couple years ago, and are now just really trying to put as much into it as we can. We're pretty convinced that will be the AAA shooter that rivals kind of Warzone and your basically your extraction battle royale type shooter. And we think, like the quality of this game is insane, and so it's going to be coming out later on this year. Have kind of
And what's the crypto element in that?
So a lot of these assets are going to be on chain. Basically, the premise is you are loaded into this body with cybernetic parts, and as you're playing this shooter, and as you are shooting, you shoot someone's arm off. Your arm has a grappling hook. Theirs comes off. You can replace it, and it's got like a new skill or a new asset that you can use. And so it adds a really cool dimension to an otherwise kind of standard successful shooting element. But part of what the crypto element is just adding a lot of these items on chain, and particularly like on the both the collectible side and the functional side. But it's still balanced where you don't have this kind of pay to win element, which is important. But yeah, it's a quality game that's again adding. You don't have to overly engineer the crypto element and put it in your face, but there's still like the massive element of ownership of assets and being able to kind of get liquidity on them.
Like more UGC.
Yeah,
Got it.
To some extent.
To some extent,
Yeah.
but it's like NFTs.
Right.
I mean, that's a big business even for Roblox. I think 1/3 of the revenue comes from like UGCs.
Right, and so the other one we're really excited about on the UGC side specifically is Hytopia. So basically, Minecraft right now, there's I forget, like 100 million plus monthly active users, and so why is it so popular right now? It's not because the developers are constantly expanding the game. It's all UGC, where people create worlds and people can play in these worlds, and these worlds range from here's my castle that I built to a shooter to all of this stuff, and so right now those creators. That's what's driving the kind of all the attention. So what this game does is it makes a backwards compatible Minecraft client that can be played on browser. So from the perspective of the player side, it's the same experience with some quality of life improvements and other graphics improvements. So it's going to feel very familiar, but improved. And then from the creator side is where the big unlock is. It allows for a better way for them to monetize what they're already doing. So they get to continue building worlds in the same way they do. And now there's like crypto monetization rails where they can clip a larger percentage of the fee, and there's upside in the protocol and stuff like that. And so we think, if you just capture even 1% of that user base, where you're not teaching them to play a new game, you're not trying to, get them out of a game they really love into something else. It's continue doing what you like, but here are additional ways to kind of earn and participate in upside of the project.
I feel like these worlds are like underexplored and I feel like there should be more in like allowing people to build their own worlds and content. I feel like that's something that my kids always look for as well.
It's hard to bootstrap, right?
It's
and then
hard to bootstrap.
But once you get the flywheel, it just becomes this huge moat, like you've seen in Minecraft.
Yeah. Just going back to like gaming, back in 21, 22, Axie Infinity took off, and then there was this whole narrative around trading guilds or like gaming guilds and the ability for people to play these games and earn. Is that still true? Has that changed in some shape based on the game design? How do you see that kind of moving forward?
I think that element will always be there. It's existed in Web 2. People like even back as far as Diablo, people would play the game, then they would take these assets, sell them on third-party sites, and that was effectively play to earn, right? It's just selling your assets to someone else who doesn't want to spend the time and wants to get ahead faster. And so I think that'll continue, but I think the issue was the ratio between the players who are there for purely play to earn relative there to play for fun, right? And so
like farming.
Yeah. When it's overweight, there is no perfect ratio. I think it depends on the game, but you can't have everyone producing assets to sell when there isn't enough offsetting demand from the players that want to use those assets without having to spend the time to farm them. And so I think it boils down to just the ratio, which again goes back to, is this game fun? Can it create a large audience? Because you kind of need that in order to get the flywheel going as well. It can't just be the supply side. You can bootstrap it a little bit with incentives, but then it end up exacerbating the problem, right? Because once you just have too much supply, then it kind of ruins all the time that was spent, and yeah. So I think it'll always be there, but just to a different degree.
What is something that is very consensus today in crypto that you guys disagree with?
Damn.
I guess maybe it's not super consensus. We kind of gone back and forth on are L2s bad for ETH? I think the consensus now is that they are, but I don't necessarily think they are. The argument that they're bad is because they take away from demand for on-chain activity, and so there goes your kind of burn narrative on ETH, and so yes, I think what ETH loses in terms of on-chain fees, they more than make up for in terms of users that can actually use the chain, whether it's not first order chain, but on an L2. And so it adds to the moneyness, I think, component of ETH, of it being wanting to be widely held, widely used within the ecosystem. So what you lose on the very direct fundamental burn basis, I think you more than make up for on that side. And what's best for ETH is basically, you need a viral app or many viral apps. And so you need shots on goal. And I think L2s increase the amount of shots on goal, which, I think
we debate this a lot internally. And so I think the other side though is, if you're looking at it just from the fundamentals perspective, that may be the only, downside for ETH from L2s. But I think the other narrative perspective is that it takes away a lot of the mind share around just building on one chain, right? There's so many different places to build. And I think that's intimidating for a lot of devs, where you have something like Solana in its current state, which is much easier, where you can just build there and all the users are right there. I think that trade-off is where I think it gets a little dicier, and I think why that's become consensus. So yeah, I can kind of see both sides. I kind of think that it has been very painful to ETH in recent months, although I think when you look at the three ecosystems that developers are, really looking at right now, I'd say, within ETH, it's Base, right? I think is the top one that usually comes to mind. With Coinbase's distribution, you get a lot of good builders there. Then I think Solana, obviously. And then I think, I guess Telegram would be number 3 as far as the distribution they have. But I think the quality of builders, at least that we've seen there, have not been on par with, the type of builders that you see on Solana or Base. Which I think is also an arbitrage where, you will get some smart builders who see, hey, okay, there is a lot of distribution, the quality of builders, so the competition is way less fierce here. So it might even out. But I think it's tough to say that that's 100% true. There's both sides.
I'd love to get your takes on that question.
Which question specifically?
Something that's consensus that you disagree with.
Here's one. I think the consensus is starting to form around the idea that the only interesting consumer apps in crypto are the ones that have at least some elements of speculation, and the more speculative, the better. And the fundamental driving force behind that is the success of Pump and other speculative apps that generate a ton of revenue, very consistent revenue over time, and people love these products for sure. I think the pendulum has actually swung too far in that direction. We were actually very much in favor of those speculative apps maybe half a year ago, when everyone was on the other side. And now I think the pendulum has swung too far in that side. I think there's going to be a new wave of consumer apps that are going to take advantage of payment. I think crypto is really, really good for 3 types of payment: irreversible payment, micropayment, and cross-border uncensorable payment. And these things are not possible with credit card and debit card, because I think there's 2 major problems with credit card. One is credit cards charge a minimum transaction fee per transaction. So if you want to spend like $1, as a merchant, you have to pay like
25 cents.
25 cents or something, which would be like 25%. So micropayments are actually infeasible with credit cards. I think debit cards don't want to do micropayments either for other reasons. But that's one problem with the credit card. The other problem is chargebacks. So a lot of times, this is really prevalent on gambling websites, on online casinos. So you go and gamble, you lose money, and then you call the credit card company. I made a mistake. I want my money back. And then the credit card company will actually give your money back at the expense of the merchant. So the merchant actually loses money. So apparently, somewhere between 10 to up to 40% of revenue of online casinos are ultimately going to those chargebacks, like paying back the credit card companies. But crypto doesn't have that problem because crypto payments is one way, is irreversible.
Yeah.
And so micropayment and irreversible payment, I think we're going to see a new type of apps that will take advantage of these two things. And I'll give you an example that I've been thinking about. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but I think it's an example that wasn't possible before, which is that, so dating apps. So dating apps, I think it's really interesting. I got married before Tinder. So I don't really know the
due diligence.
I didn't do the due diligence, exactly. But we do have a founder who's working on dating apps, and he's really knowledgeable. And he told me about the 3 key innovations in the history of dating apps. The first one is obviously Tinder, swiping left and right. Second one, third one is it called Bumble and Hinge? But one, I don't know which one is which, but one of them is the guy needs to message the girl first before swiping, and then the other one is the girl needs to start a conversation in order for the conversation to start. And if you really think about it, these 2 innovations are so trivial, but it creates a huge change in the consumer behavior. So in the case of when the guy has to message first, what it creates is more intentionality. So because on Tinder, guys just always swipe right? Like there's no upside to
just run the treadmill.
Yeah, exactly. Just run the treadmill.
It's like tapping on Telegram, right?
Whereas exactly the
attached to a drill.
Yeah, you're basically a hamster on. But if you force the guy to message the girl first, then the guy has to think a little bit more. There's more intentionality. There's more interest. Like the guy cannot always swipe, right?
Yeah.
This little friction creates a lot of really good intentions, and it ultimately increases the likelihood of getting matched with a girl. So my idea with crypto is, how do we increase the intentionality even further? So one idea is stake a tiny amount of money. It doesn't have to be like $10. It could be like 10 cents or even 1 cent. I don't know what the right number is, but if you get matched with a girl, you get the money back. If you don't get matched with a girl, you lose the money. So this little change, I feel like it can really change the behavior of guys on dating apps. But it's just something I'm thinking out loud. But I think there will be other types of social apps that are based on these micropayments.
Money games.
Money games.
For sure. There's have you guys talked to Moonwalk Fitness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good friends with like KW and everyone there. And I'm an angel, but I really like that concept. And basically, for like listeners who don't know it, essentially what it is, and the current version of it is, players can sign up and say, hey, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps this week, and they all kind of agree. It can be 10 people, it can be 50 people, etc. Everyone locks in some amount of soul, whether it's $100, 1,000, etc. And if you do your 10,000 steps every day that week, you will at minimum get that money back, right? But then the rest of the money is distributed back at you. And I think that concept is super interesting because you can kind of extract that for a lot of other healthy habits, right? Yeah. Whether it's sleep, whether it's like, a Peloton competition, they already have these on the apps. And I think that's really interesting. I think another cool part about it is, especially if you get, some of these crypto protocols who want to, sponsor and get different types of users on, I think this is an app that is, actually really good for a demographic outside of crypto. Most people in crypto, hopefully are healthy, but a lot of them just sit inside behind a computer, right? Whereas, one thing I was talking to their team about was like, hey, we should sponsor like a girlfriend and wives of crypto competition, right? Where, all of us put our money up for our, wives or girlfriends who, are usually want to be healthy and want to do that. And I think that can help onboard way more women into the space and stuff like that. Or, even my parents, for example, I told my mom that idea and she's like, where do I sign up? Like how do I sign up?
It's a
so I think
motivation factor.
Yeah, so I think it's very parallel to.
So in the case of Moonwalk, I don't. Sure, you can use credit card to do payments, but again, it can't do small competitions with micropayments. And also, if you lose the competition, you may want to call the credit card company and get the money back.
Yeah, fair.
So
A little more embarrassing this time around.
a little bit, yeah, exactly, a little bit more. So I think crypto can actually make a difference there.
Yeah, for sure.
One idea that I think consensus is that prediction markets are going to fail after polymarket elections. And that, and we talked to Nigel, who's the founder of FanDuel, and I think he said that too. And then I've seen investors talk about, they're getting tons of pitches around prediction markets and it's going to all go to zero. I think it's the opposite. So we're working on a concept where, so like there's two worlds, right? There's the world that we live in and there's a world that the younger generation lives in, like the Gen Alpha, Gen Zers. And we're seeing some interesting macro changes. One change that we're seeing is the fact that we're seeing, like LeBron James, Kevin Hart, Donald Trump, they're joining streamers, right? So like Adam Ross is a part of Trump, right?
Yeah.
You saw that stream. Kai Cenat with LeBron James. And so what's interesting to me is the fact that like old celebrities or old school celebrities are starting to endorse this newer celebrities that are up and coming. And what's even more interesting is that Gen Z, Gen Alpha are finding their own niche in like who they see as the future of celebrities. And so movies, if you look at the numbers of the movies, it's going down, streaming going down in terms of movies, but streaming in terms of like Twitch, Kick, all-time high. And so the question is, so that was like one interesting data point. The second interesting data point is like betting in general is going up to the right. Mm-hmm. You saw the Instagram video, like we had some data that we were sharing internally within Alliance where it shows that, people are more interested in betting, sports betting, et cetera, across the board globally. Mm-hmm. So to me, actually, what's interesting here is the fact that you could probably add a speculative layer on top of streaming such that you could stream and predict and try to play prediction markets on streamers, as an example. Whether it's, I don't know if you saw like I Show Speed, one of the streamers jumping over a Ferrari. Like you could bet on that as an example. And so I think prediction market's going to stay. I think we're going to see some interesting interactive elements, and it's going to be not for our generation, but for the newer generations.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. There's actually some I forget what the company is called, but it should be easy to find. I believe in Asia, in India and stuff, there's like a company that at the end of a TV show, it kind of like it asks the audience like, what do you think is going to happen? So it's a little bit more interactive. I think that builds on top of that. And actually, so we on the research side, we have we do some consulting for probably like 15, 20 projects a year is max. Most of these are crypto native just because they are way more fun to work with. They actually ship, right? But we work with some, big Fortune 500 companies as well as like Web2 businesses. One that we were just talking to just last week actually is this pop culture prediction market. It already has a bunch of users, around like 70, 100,000, monthly active users. No, not crypto at all, but they are exploring coming to crypto. But the cool part about it is it's basically a pop culture prediction market that is used primarily by women and females, which are the same thing, but essentially it's all fair fuck, sorry. Which essentially is like for certain things like Love Island. Who do you think is gonna be?
Oh, dude, my wife would be all over that.
Yeah.
And like Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, exactly. Or like Charlie XCX.
Yeah.
And
the tricky part is like, how do you make a line for something?
Yeah. That's what we were talking to them about. Like,
how do you make?
And right now they do very small bets, right? So, and right now, man, like if you use this app, they have to go through like the whole sweepstakes loophole to not be like, hey, we're betting or gambling on this app. So the UX is, a little bit clunky, but it's still kind of insane to see all the hoops, these women will like kind of jump through to, bet on this app and stuff like that. And right now the bets are very small, like usually 50 cents or something like that. But that's really interesting to us.
One thing we're leading we're leading a deal called for a company called Contro. So I agree. I'm bullish prediction markets. I think the poly market. The poly market deal was a tricky one. I think at that val is It was a 400 mil val.
Oof.
I mean, they timed it perfectly in terms of the raise, right? You want to do it during an election year when attention and all of that is at all-time highs. But they have a tricky business model in the sense that they have to incentivize liquidity, and it's pretty expensive because it's hard to market make that liquidity elsewhere, right? Whereas it's easier when it's a very liquid asset that's in a lot of venues, but when there's only one place where it exists, it's expensive because it's hard for the market maker to be delta neutral. And so they're incentivizing quite a bit. So what Contro is basically one of the innovations.
They incentivizing how? Just giving money?
Yeah.
Like for the makers, right?
It's just like VC money basically to market makers. Yeah. And it's like pretty expensive. A lot more than kind of your standard.
Because they're a club, right? Or they're using logarithmic.
No, they're club.
They're club. Okay.
Yeah, with some underlying like LP pool as well, but it's club. And from the perspective of,
do you know who these market makers are?
Honestly, I don't.
It's not, yeah, I know. I feel like it's like if you remember like the NFT guys and Dr. Burry or something. I was thinking something like that
because it's very bespoke exposure, right? It's not. So what these guys are doing is something called a gradual limit order book. Glob, and so the idea is price. You're adding a time dimension to price, and so it kind of shifts over time as people participate and add liquidity and put their bets in. It gradually shifts. So part of what that enables is the initial bootstrapping. So the idea here is you have these Twitter spats. And someone says like, I wish I could make a market and like people could participate. And now the initial person can go out and create this market, right? So they basically put up a certain amount of liquidity saying, I will take all action, like I'll take up to X dollars of action at this probability.
Yeah.
And then people can come in and put in the other side, and then it creates this pool that can shift back and forth based on people putting in rules around what they want to take at what price over what time. And so what we think is it'll really appeal to the long tail of bets, right? Because what we need prediction markets to do is go beyond just presidential elections, which is where they've seen a lion's share of their volume. And so being able to have this be long tail, bootstrappable by the bettors themselves, and then I think that adds a very viral element to people as they start to post online, and you can immediately financialize a bet that was otherwise just purely kind
of. What part would exactly incentivize the long tail?
Because now you could spin up markets very easily, and so long tail of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
So like long tail of bets that people are having or disagreements on Twitter. You want to put math, like put actual dollars behind it,
and it's because of the glob that enables this. Why?
Because so basically, it allows you to initially set up a market and say, like, for example,
like an AMM pool.
Yeah, like the Balaji bet, right? Where I forget the order, but it was he came in saying, I think it'll double at $1 million. Yeah. So you could put that on chain, and then everyone else can come in and gradually fill and take the other side, and so over time, if people aren't necessarily taking the other side, the price starts to gravitate towards the less liquid side, and so basically.
So this doesn't require a liquidity provider.
No, the initial bet maker is the provider, and then people can come in and take the other side. And so,
is this what Polymarket is doing?
No. So this is Contro. This is something we're investing in that we're very bullish on. And I think I think prediction markets make a lot of sense, right? It's just there are some frictions that we need to get around.
I think it's the pricing mechanism is one. I think resolving is number two.
Yep.
That's and I think Umar protocol, it's okay, but there's also a lot of contention on certain bets because there's nuance that's required. Pricing, resolving are the two, I would say.
Yeah, resolving is a big one. I agree. And I think what they're kind of doing is you need, I think, an internal counsel with skin in the game not in the market but in the protocol, because you as a protocol owner are going to do the fairest thing, because if you don't, then you're just hurting your business, right? And so there needs to be interest aligned between the success of the protocol, which is based on honest and fair resolutions, and the people that are making those judgments. And you can kind of put in elements where people can, I want to stake X amount if I disagree with what's happening. You can have like step-based escalation with penalties and such that if you're right, you get everything back. And so it's costless in that sense. Because we've seen it basically on everything that seems very vanilla already. It's just like, on this technicality, it kind of breaks. And things that shouldn't be disputed get disputed.
Yeah.
I've seen also a lot of like mixed feelings around AI and crypto on the infra side.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are pretty big proponents of AI and crypto. So I'm curious on like your investment thesis probably is like a good place to start. And like, what are some of the bigger opportunities that people aren't seeing?
Yeah. I'd say like the two of the ones that we're very bullish on are Noose, which is building a foundational model, and then Grass, which is basically a way to decentralize the ability for kind of web scraping and providing that data, because that's one of the bigger issues with kind of how you input into these models. And so we think, how can you benefit from the bottom up distributed nature of crypto, and where does that kind of fit into the AI stack? Because there's like, a decent argument to be made that centralization is the most efficient form here. And so like, where are the elements that centralization doesn't help? And that's kind of how we're thinking about approaching investing in crypto and AI.
Yeah, and I think like when we, at least for me, like I was kind of thinking it was very buzzwordy, and like I kind of expected there to be a narrative, but I thought it was a little bit too early for us to see like real applications or real usage of this stuff. We just released this report publicly, actually, called "The Tower and the Square," which is like part one of these AI series of how our research team and our ventures team is thinking about AI. And it kind of like really got me excited and made me realize this is going to happen much faster. Like, I don't know if you guys read that paper, Situational Awareness, about how like AGI is like, probably less than a decade away. Something that, our partner Jose constantly says is he thinks like everyone, even the biggest AI like fans and investors, are like very underexposed for that reality if that ends up happening. So I think like as far as the intersection of AI and crypto, I think a couple of things that I've come around to is like, we've always had this meme of like we're building to onboard like millions of users, and the reality might be that we've just been building to onboard millions of bots, right? And these AI agents, and I think that could very well happen. And I think one thing that I think about too is like all these AI agents, like they're not gonna like you think we don't like the TradFi world, like they're gonna hate it, right? Whereas crypto is going to be like much more their speed and their language.
Can you explain what are the dynamics there that why there's so much friction with like
Yeah, I mean think about it, right? Like on you sending a wire today, right? I just sent one like earlier this week, or I thought, and then I realized it got canceled, and then yesterday I had to send it again. There's so much confirmations. There's so much like certain things that are not even on the JP Morgan's website that I have to go get that information, go do it. It's so manual, right?
By the way, my success rate of wire transfers over the last 2-3 years, when the recipient has the word crypto or digital asset, has gone down.
Oh yeah,
it's been very obvious. And I used Chase as well. I don't know if I'm the only one, but last 3 years it's like crazy.
It's kind of insane, actually. I always say when people are like feeling bearish and stuff, like if you're ever feeling bearish, just go to a bank, and do any type of transaction, and it'll make you more bullish on what we're doing here, right? So that's one angle that I'm kind of like super excited about. And I think also on the flip side, I think like obviously right now a lot of the AI like focus has been around like chatbots. I think AI will also be a much better way to use a lot of these crypto applications. And I think like crypto obviously suffers from like UX and UI. Like all these wallets and stuff get so complicated to use, even for people like us who are like here 24/7. So I think that's also a huge opportunity. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen yet, but it's an area that I think is like definitely worth paying attention to and spending a lot of time on. And fortunately, on our venture side, we have like Tom and Can. On the research side, we have like Rawson, who just published that report, which, DM me if you can't find it, but it's like...
I haven't read your report yet, but I'm sure you have the answer to this question. But which crypto AI product today has the most traction?
Which crypto AI project today has the most traction? What do you think?
Early signs of product market fit?
Yeah, like So the second part of the report kind of walks into, the it's called like season the means. That one's not public yet, but if anyone's listening, DMs me, I'll send it to you. That one kind of goes into the current liquid market. I think the main takeaway there is, yes, it's still early, but they're promising. Like I think Tau is something that is constantly debated. I think there's and it's like a hated coin, and I think people would think that like the past behind it. And we have a lot of debates internally. I think Tom is like very against it too. But I think like you can't underwrite that community and how much activity is actually there. And I think the incentives actually work. We had a friend who is super sharp, and she was like, I don't like Tau at all. I'm not gonna, I don't think it's worth it. And then, 2-3 weeks went by, and she's like, wait, how much are those people making? I'm gonna go build on Tau now, So like, I think Tau is one that I think if in the public liquid market is interesting. We're not investors in it. I have a like small bag, but it's more so to have skin in the game to like keep tabs on it.
Yeah.
Tau is just kind of the, oh man, TradFi AI-based stuff is pumping. How does
To get exposure.
How do I get exposure in crypto? And like it just became the consensus pick. But the problem is obviously, people like it because they can farm a lot of Tau, get paid to basically like improve their models. And so
when you see a lot of traders talking about it, that's when you
yeah. Am I the exit liquidity? No, yeah.
I'm now a community.
I saw that with Tron, with the son of memes.
Oh yeah, the new his pump fund.
Yeah, pump fund on Tron. So every trader's talking about it right now.
Oh wow.
The son of memes. That's the name of the product.
Yeah,
It's
son of memes, or something like
yeah,
that.
you got to lean into it, honestly. Like so.
Go to the sun. It's like instead of going to the moon, you're going to the
Oh,
sun.
that's so good. You're gonna get burned. Damn. I mean, at least they're being like correct.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's being transparent.
Yeah, exactly. Man. Damn, that's good. Fuck, I gotta go try it.
I mean, yeah. So like, some of the shit coins. I think the first. I think Justin's dog went up to like 400 million.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, that's worth at least $1 billion.
Like, we got to diversify into other dogs that he might have.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh god.
Does he have any cats? Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I somebody shared the Tron price chart recently. I was like, that thing looks great.
Yeah.
I have 0 Tron bags, but like I didn't realize that chart looked as good as it did.
Damn, we are underexposed.
We're all underexposed.
Yeah.
I mean, payments is doing really well on Tron.
Yeah.
People actually use it, right?
Because they don't trust Tether or Circle.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of USDT on Tron too.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the bigger. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how much of that volume is legit. But yeah,
How much of volume is Justin Sun's own money?
Yeah. Sending it back and
0
forth.
fees and no, yeah, he's one. Well, then the other stuff around AI has been kind of like the adjacent, your renders and things that are more compute based rather than purely AI based, and so you can kind of see those gaining some attention and demand as you don't necessarily need to be right. You're just providing the means by which people can train, and so I think it ends up being kind of like more picks and shovels. There's quite a few more tokens that are coming to market pretty soon. So I think that'll probably eat away at some of the
Grass, right?
Yeah, Grass.
They're gonna have a token launch soon.
Yeah, and that raised at a pretty rich val. That was most recent round was 500. So that'll be interesting.
I'd also consider that one kind of like DePIN as well, right?
Yeah.
Like deep in AI.
Yeah, and we definitely
we did that round, by the way.
Yeah. Which
You didn't
have done that.
You didn't do that round.
Huh?
You didn't do that round.
We did.
You did. Okay.
Yeah. But I think we have been spending more and more time on DePIN. We haven't made that many investments there, but I think it's an area that is really interesting. I also think from an onboarding perspective, it's actually like really novel, where the 3 ways I think about onboarding normies were like 1, airdrops, 2, meme coins, and 3, DePIN. And I think DePIN's actually the more interesting of the 3 because, airdrops have become, obviously everyone's like upset about them. And you have to have a lot of capital for that too, right? Meme coins, you need less capital, but you still need capital. Whereas, with some of these DePIN projects like Grass, you can just, download an extension and run it in the background. So I have a bunch of my normie friends who are like, using that and probably don't understand or know that they're going to get these tokens yet. And I think that's really interesting, where all of a sudden you get people onboarded into crypto without them having to put any capital up.
It's like Honey, or was it Honey?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That went really viral and really
Yeah,
big.
exactly. So I think that's like
You know Honey?
interesting. Yeah.
Hive Mapper?
No, Honey. It's a Web2 app extension.
Coupon. Yeah.
And you could browse and you earn like credits or something.
And like coupon codes based
And
on
yeah,
codes.
you get discount codes on
And
everything.
you get discount codes. They ended up raising at a bill or
I
something.
think they got acquired.
They got acquired.
Yeah. They were,
And the goal is to capture data?
Data of your shopping history.
Yeah,
from what I
exactly.
remember. And you get like
Okay.
credits.
Basically, like you're on, you're checking out at Walmart or something, and all you have to do is click this extension, and it's like, oh, we found this code that you can apply for 25% off or something like that.
And
And
there's
there's
also
also the Honey Hive Mapper token.
Honey is the token for Hive Mapper.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's also Rakuten, and it's like a Japanese startup, but they're pretty big now, conglomerate. But what they do is similar to what Honey does. They have affiliate links. You go in there and you get discounts and stuff like that. So
Oh,
I do
interesting.
think there's a crypto angle to this.
Do you know what Rakuten stands for? Do you know what that means?
I don't know what that means.
So like it's actually luck 10, but in Japanese it's laku, like the Japanese pronunciation Rakuten, so Rakuten. But anyway, it's a huge, it's one of the
company.
biggest Japanese conglomerate.
Oh wow, damn.
But they're doing this too. So I do think there could be a crypto angle to this. We should think about it.
What data set does the Grass protocol team think is the most interesting? Because like the token side, that's the supply side. What about the demand side? Like there's going to be people who want to buy that data, right?
Right.
What data sets do they find the most interesting? Or maybe what you think is the most interesting?
The big barrier is the fact that there's a lot of kind of anti-bot measures for the scraping. So I think it's basically anything that has a good bot defense, where it needs to be scraped via organic usage and can't be scraped by like a bot farm. And so I think kind of thinking about it almost that way, which in terms of like what data is the most scarce or most difficult to procure, would be the most valuable. And so I think that kind of varies depending on websites and what protections they have against a lot of that stuff. And then there's like you need another protocol to kind of organize it as well. And so there's obviously it's just raw information that isn't really as useful without a lot of characterization. So there's I think another element of the data supply chain basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are there areas that you guys are excited about in the AI space, or are you still a crypto AI? Sorry.
Crypto AI.
I am on the consumer side. Crate is like a good example of that. I know you have some too. So the one I'll talk about is Crate, which is the ability to remix, create your own music using AI and then tokenizing that.
Yeah, how did that launch go? Because I met with Joey like the week before the launch. Thought the ideas made a lot of sense, and back then I think his model of it was like having protocols like write diss songs to each other. It was like doing the Drake Kendrick beef or whatever, right? So I thought it was pretty interesting. I definitely saw some songs the week of, but I'm curious about like the retention, and then like how do you continue? Because I think the hard part about, and this is what I was talking to him about, is like the benefit is that it creates this coin with the ticker, right, of the song. Because I think people's attention spans are so like short nowadays that the biggest disadvantage for him was the product that he was like making with these AI songs is, even if it's 30 seconds to a minute, that takes way longer than you sing like a dog with a hat, right? So I think like that was, the hard part, where your niche audience that you can kind of go after, who has that attention span long enough to listen to, 5-10 songs on this app, is going to be much harder than being able to scroll pumped out funds like Ticker List or something like that.
So the way we did the launch, and we've learned a few things. One is there's a group of artists. There's a large group of artists that I would consider under the SoundCloud. So if you look at the kind of music pipeline, it's like SoundCloud. You get virality through like social media, like TikTok. Then the last is Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns out a few things. One is people discover new music on TikTok and Instagram, even though they don't like to say it. Like we've analyzed users' likes, and it turns out most of the time they discover new music on TikTok. And then where do they listen? Spotify or Apple Music. That's where they listen. SoundCloud is the area where we think is the most interesting, because they're not doing that well. and they're just using TikTok. Artists are trying to use TikTok as a way to game the algo. So our thought process now is, could we compete against SoundCloud in a way that is gamified and can create like a pump-like experience?
But what does SoundCloud even do?
It's just a music hosting platform, and they have a network effect already of listeners. And the goal is for up-and-coming artists to use SoundCloud as a way to kind of shield their
So why is it different from Spotify?
I feel like SoundCloud is more like Dropbox.
Yeah, you can put it on like copyright, like people put on remixes or mixes and stuff. So if you put it on a remix of like a Taylor Swift song on Spotify, you're gonna get taken down. On SoundCloud, you'll probably be able to be up. And then there are plugins on top of it. Like I believe there's one called like Hype Edit or something like that, which basically gates it. So it allows, it's like, hey, you can only download this song if you comment or like or post your follow us on Instagram. So it ends up being really good to grow the following of an artist.
Yep.
I like the timestamp based commenting where you
Yeah, that too.
Like when you're first.
Yeah, Sound XYZ has that too, right? When you like mint a song, you can kind of comment.
Or I was gonna say you comment on a certain part of the song.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like,
at the tick.
Yeah,
it shows the
great,
comment
or-
song at like you get to comment like at minute or second 59.
Yeah, I like this part.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that SoundCloud does that like really well. Yeah.
So the idea there is like, could we create both AI generated music and allow people to upload their own music and be discovered?
Mm-hmm.
And the way we're thinking about it is through like incentivized viral sharing. So like you pump a song and you click a pump and then you share it with all of your socials and you get some incentives for sharing that. And then we only upload like snippet of a song and you could unlock it once you get enough views or something like that. We're still finalizing the final incentive model, but that's kind of the way we're thinking about it.
There are a lot of startups right now that are building in this intersection of incentivizing influencers or creators on TikTok to use certain songs, show certain objects, and it's actually massive. Like
it's a whole like black market for
it's a whole black market.
Yeah.
And some people get paid a couple $100, but they pay $100 to like 1,000 influencers.
Yeah.
Or they pay like 5 influencers like $5,000 who they think can really kind of like push that song or push that narrative, whatever. Yeah, I think there's definitely
Pitch Hill.
Huh? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's like a Viral Nation is like a big like there's consulting companies are everywhere now.
Yeah,
like facilitating, interactions between products and creators.
Yeah, for sure. I saw this platform that actually got Disclosure's manager is helping build, and essentially like the data that they have is kind of insane. Where you can see exactly like which influencers have been the best for happy songs or sad songs and things like that. So you can really drill in and it's like, they do like a long song or they talk about the song and it's in the background or the song is the focus, right? So you can kind of like mix and match, right? And kind of like, take a couple different tactics and kind of like get more bang for your buck possibly.
Yeah, so we're trying to crack that. So
yeah, that's interesting.
We're still iterating and we got a new name for it, new viral.fun.
No, I like it.
So the goal is if anyone wants to launch music and they want to go viral, you go to viral.fun and get discovered.
No, that makes sense. I like it.
So you had some AI, like AI Gen, like AI girlfriend. Remember?
Yeah, man. You're doing a lot of testing. Everything okay, John? Like
due diligence.
Yeah. You got all the dating apps. You got AI girlfriends.
I think there's going to be some apps that's on the app side that will sit at the intersection of AI and consumer or AI and crypto on the consumer side. I don't know what the right configuration is, but there is something there. Generated AI is just really good for creators, and then crypto is just really good for getting something go viral. So there's
and validation.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know what the right configuration, but I'm interested in that area. Nothing really excites me so far, but I'm paying very close attention on the infra side. I mean, so broad categories is data, that's grass, and then compute. Yeah. And then you could argue that compute is low level, high level. Low level is providing GPUs, high level is providing like straight up inference or training. Training doesn't really make sense, but it's a different story. And then there's like all these AI oracles, like ZKML, OPML, like these are like different, yet another bucket. In general, I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Especially decentralized compute, I think it's I have a very strong argument against decentralized GPUs. Is that the thesis is by leveraging the latent hardware, the latent GPUs from a laptop or the GPUs are used for Ethereum mining, you can reduce the cost. You can ultimately pass some of the savings back to the users, basically providing cheaper service. Empirically, that's just not the case. Empirically, what does help provide cheaper service is not decentralization, it's centralization. Yeah. It's economy of scale. It's the ability to procure the latest GPUs and put them all in one place, reduce latencies between the GPUs, and then because you have economy of scale, you can procure those GPUs at a cheaper price than the average consumer can. So I'm extremely skeptical of decentralized compute.
Purely from a latency perspective, right?
No. It's latency. It's also economy of scale.
Economy of scale.
Cost, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if you guys watched the Peter Thiel, Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, I watched snippets of it. But he talked about how AI has to be highly centralized, and that's going to be primarily in like both network effects in San Francisco and the infrastructure is going to be highly centralized. And he sees, crypto as a highly decentralized, completely like libertarian versus communism, and that's the way it plays. He does so. Go ahead. So it's economy of scale, latency between the GPUs, but there's another really strong argument, which is that if you think about Airbnb and Uber, like decentralized GPUs is basically Airbnb or Uber, but with GPUs. Yeah. But there is a fundamental difference between the two, is that houses and cars, they don't follow Moore's law. They don't improve they don't double in terms of power every couple of years. GPUs, they go outdated every 6 months. Every 6 months, NVIDIA releases a new generation of GPUs, and then all of a sudden, the older ones are just outdated. They're not fast enough anymore, and they're not cheap enough anymore. And now you want to use these old GPUs sitting in your laptop. They're not going to be as competitive as the latest generation. So Moore's law is the key difference between Airbnb and decentralized GPUs. What use cases could we see decentralized compute for? Like, let's just say you get all the high processing. Okay, so the idea of provide the thesis that decentralized GPUs provide cheaper service, I don't buy that. I think it doesn't work. But there's one potential use case for decentralized GPUs, which is censorship resistance. Yeah, that could make sense because if I look at so Eric Voorhees released his Venice, right? Venice.ai. And under the hood, he uses, among other GPU providers, he uses a cache.
Morpheus, right? Is that Morpheus?
No, it's Venice. Okay. It's called Venice. But they use a cache among other GPU providers. And the reason he stated, his stated reason is it's decentralized and therefore censorship resistance. No one can censor my inference requests, right? Mm-hmm. Which has happened in some shape or form with OpenAI and Gemini, et cetera, et cetera. So I buy that thesis. I feel like there will be. I don't know exactly what is consensus right now, but I do feel like censorship resistance is like one area, especially with foundation models.
Yeah, especially you're seeing how like you're getting, non-neutral responses in certain situations that are, based on the whether it's
like biased model.
Right?
Like with ChatGPT.
It's just like the bias of the people adjusting the model, whether it's conscious or subconscious. There's gonna it's gonna represent their internal kind of beliefs as they make their tweaks.
But then the counter to that counter is. There's more than one way to achieve censorship resistance. One is decentralize the providers, but another way is just running open source models on your own device. You can choose which model you want to run, and as the open source models become more and more performant, more and more those models can be run on your local device as opposed to be on the cloud.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this. Wasn't there a project that you were looking at that was doing this?
EXO,
got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they are able to hack the latest Llama model in such a way that it can run on iPhone.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me for sure.
Yeah, that feels like a more pragmatic solution to the censorship resistance problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, the privacy element too is a big one.
Privacy and privacy. I realized that privacy, the kind of user segment for whom privacy really matters is corporations, is companies. It's not most individuals don't care about privacy, but it's the companies that do. And I realized this when ChatGPT first came out. I wrote a bot that analyzed my Telegram messages with our founders, so that every day it gives me like the top, things I need to respond, right? And as soon as I released that bot, I realized, holy shit, I'm sending all these messages to OpenAI. I should stop doing this. Yeah. So privacy matters to me.
OpenAI starts blockchain accelerator.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
What else are you guys seeing in the market right now? Or what's most exciting to you guys? You guys just started your new cohort, right?
Yeah. We have a lot of startups experimenting with new consumer apps that create new consumer behaviors.
Yeah.
That wasn't possible before crypto. I don't know where they're going exactly, but there's a bunch of experiments that are really like the dating one.
Yeah.
Or in general, the ability to leverage the micropayment and the irreversible payment aspect of crypto in the context of consumer apps. I think that's super interesting. Another one that's interesting is leveraging ZK to prove certain online identity. And I'll give you the most absurd or the most extreme, but in hindsight, pretty obvious example is on dating apps. I'm talking about dating apps. Jesus Christ! But
there's a real need there, Qiao.
Prove your net worth. Prove your net worth using ZK. I mean, as a first step, you can use ZK to prove your on-chain net worth, but also there are some the latest ZK what's it called TLS.
TLS, yeah.
That you can use ZK to prove that when you serve a website, like let's say your bank account, chase.com, you log in, and then that technology can prove how much money you have in your bank account, and then generate a proof. And then I'm giving you a very extreme example of net worth, but there's other types of identity that you can prove. For example, your affiliation with certain
organizations or something.
Schools or whatever.
Achievements.
So Blind is a really good Web2 example. Blind is a website where basically employees talk shit about their employer and share sensitive information like their salary. People really want to know how much their coworkers are getting paid. So they go to Blind and they can ask the questions about the salary and et cetera. But the only identity about the person who answers your question is their employer. And the way they verify employment is looking at the corporate email. But there's probably other types of identity that can only be proven with ZK rather than with an email, for example.
Do they verify through ZK the salary, or is an honor system, so there's game theory over what you should actually say and versus what the truth is?
Okay, so that's another really interesting area I'm thinking about. I don't know how practical that is, but there could be a type of new apps. It's like a spy network or sensitive information network, information sharing network. In Web2, it's GLG. It's like people...
Time that fun, yeah.
People find experts on their website and then ask them potentially questions about very sensitive information. But maybe with ZK, maybe it's possible to build an app leveraging ZK in such a way that, if you're in the possession of a really sensitive information, but you want to get paid before revealing the information. Like, how do you do that? Like, you can use ZK to potentially prove that you're in the possession of that information without revealing it. You get paid and then you reveal the information.
Yeah.
Some kind of spy.
Yeah, I guess it had to be very niche on like the type of information, right?
It has to be very niche, but being very niche, some of the niche pieces of information are potentially very, very valuable.
Sure. Yeah.
So thinking about it, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know how practical that is, but something I'm paying attention to.
Some of the other areas that we're excited about, DePIN. So, AI is going to probably increase the price of energy over the next 3 to 5 years. And so we have a DePIN energy startup that effectively sells you plugs that will analyze your energy output and will connect with the grid. And then when grid prices are starting to creep up, you could turn off certain types of machines. So it'll automatically turn it off for you to help you save money on your bill. So it's funny, I just got my electrical bill yesterday or a week ago, and it was 30% increase. And my wife's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, AI. I was just fucking with her. You wouldn't get it. But I do think this is going to become even more like people are going to pay attention to energy bill.
There's two fundamental, very big driving forces behind your electrical bills in the coming, let's say, call it 2 years. One is the AI, is the data centers. Everyone knows the story. But the other one is just renewable energy, because wind and solar, they're volatile, they're unstable. You don't get sun every day, you don't get wind every day. So the more renewable energy the grid depends on, the less stable the energy supply is. So what ultimately matters in energy supply is peak usage. It's not average usage, it's peak usage. Because peak usage is when the grid goes down and you run out of power. There's a power outage. So the instability and the increase from AI demand means that in the coming couple of years, we could see a lot of power outages. And so one way to solve that is they call it the VPP, virtual power plant. The way it works, and this exists in Web 2. It's not a pure crypto thing, but in Web 2, you have these startups or companies that try to aggregate edge energy devices, such as your Tesla, like Tesla's car, but also the Tesla home battery, but also the plug that you mentioned.
The plug. Yeah.
Things that use energy, but also can potentially give energy back to the grid. So if you have a battery at home, it stores energy, you can potentially give energy back to the grid. Right?
Effectively selling energy.
The energy back to the grid. So basically create this network that controls all these different edge devices to ultimately stabilize grid usage. So for example, when there's a lot of usage, when demand exceeds supply, this VPP can tell every node or every household in this network to automatically either sell the energy from their battery back to the grid, or stop charging their Tesla car, or turn down your AC, like using the plug, the smart plug. And that's basically what a VPP is. But the problem with these Web2 VPPs is it's really, really hard to bootstrap the network. People don't have that much of an incentive to install these plugs or to connect their Tesla cars to this network.
And they're not even savvy enough, right? Like I just feel like there's a lack of, like, every person that I've spoken to so far, they haven't heard of any of this.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's also an educational
there's definitely an education problem.
And I do think like having some sort of way to incentivize this type of growth can propel the growth of this industry.
I think crypto is perfect for this use case.
Are you selling back to only other plug users, or can you sell back to the like
you sell back to the grid, the energy supplier?
They're the buyer of last resort.
Yeah.
So I guess the reason for that question was just to understand what are the network effect elements of the plug, or it seems like you're
buying these devices,
right?
You're plugging into all of your appliances, and it'll communicate with the grid and will effectively turn it on and off. You get points,
right,
as you're contributing to the data. And essentially the network effects is the more data that you get, the more control you have over appliances. And then you can create this, like, effectively think of it as like clusters of energy. And when things go higher, then you're effectively controlling the supply, right, of energy output.
Well, and more so.
And then you're getting, and then obviously the users are getting tokens as an incentive model.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like layer one. The layer two is the batteries. So they've already manufactured batteries that will sell into these households. And effectively, the way you want to think about it is that, you get energy off peak times and you store it. And then essentially the house with all the plugs will rely on that energy when things go really expensive. So it's like a power plant, but it's an incentivized power plant.
And that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, the network effects question was not meant as like a slight, but more as like a pro, in the sense that, so with DePIN, a lot of these, I guess using Helium as an example, you need network effects for the project to work, because
the connected devices,
right? Yeah. So like you have a cold start problem, whereas here it's you versus the grid. So as long as you're doing it, you're basically maximizing the benefits of it. You don't necessarily need everyone else to adopt it for you to really get the benefits, kind of thing.
The beauty. The ultimate benefit is actually for the utility company, and ultimately for everyone in that network. Basically, the network effect is the more of these edge devices the utility company or the energy supplier can control, the more they're able to stabilize the energy supply and demand.
In clusters.
And yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
And if they're and they have an incentive to do this, and obviously by definition, by the very nature of their business, and then ultimately they can pass some of those savings back to these individual nodes in the network. So ultimately, the consumers have have a financial incentive to do this as well.
I feel like this is one of the devices. It's called Star Power, but it's like one of the first startups that I've seen that actually delivers like some sort of benefit outside of just tokens, right? I mean, obviously Helium does too, and there's others that do it, but like seeing a financial bill, and it reduces your bill every month
immediately.
It's like immediate, and
awesome.
You're getting paid on top, right? So
it's nice.
It's an interesting concept that we're
it's like
about.
One of the positives of that came out of COVID is everyone's kind of trying to build more towards the individual resilience and less reliance on like the supply or the supply chain or the grid or whatever it might be that normally. I saw a stat that's like 10% of Americans have their own chicken coops.
Yeah, I have. Don't you have one? Or you're about to get one? Chicken coop?
Oh yeah. I'm about to get one for my daughter.
Yeah, it's nuts. So it's like makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But if you're actually able to do it, right? Because the crazy thing about that stat is, that includes all households. Like you obviously have to remove from the denominator everyone who's in a condo or in an apartment. So the actual per home thing is a much higher number. Like the percent's a lot higher.
Why is that? Like why? Like I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting stat.
Yeah, I honestly
more individualism, right? Like
and just I think there's also distrust in food companies and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And seeing all that stuff come out, and just people kind of opening their eyes to a lot of this stuff. And
what's also interesting? I guess I'm gonna go off tangent a bit, but like it seems like Gen Zers are more distrustful, and even Gen Alpha. They're more. Qiao and I talked about this.
Yeah.
But we're seeing some interesting stats, which is like they don't believe anything in the media anymore. Like we were already kind of skeptical, but they completely disregard it. And in fact, they're going the other way, and they're embracing the things that they don't talk about. I think you and I talked about Remilias and all this stuff, like subcultures of the ladies. But it seems like they're embracing racism as it is. Like, have you seen that? Like,
I mean, it's a lot more prevalent. Yeah,
it's just interesting that you have this distrust in the government, you have distrust in the media, like our generation, like millennials and like early millennials, we like don't trust them that much, but it's like 50-50.
I think once it goes all the way to this side, it has to swing back.
Yeah.
Right. And at their very core, like when you're growing up, you want to rebel. And I think like just being, constantly, especially them, right? Like millennials, we grew up without phones for a good portion of our lives. We were able to have a childhood and everything like that. But when they were growing up, their brains were immediately just sent into this like dopamine factory of just like, here's what we want you to see. Here's how we want you to think. Here's what we want you to do. And then, so I'm not surprised that they want to rebel. The racism is definitely
it's crazy.
Like,
they're like GWH if you follow him or Mitch. I mean, like, like what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, it's like a combination of being terminally online, anonymous, and getting a lot like
engagement
a lot of engagement from that stuff too. It's just like it's kind of responding to engagement, which is so bearish on that front, right? It's like how many people are kind of closet because cloud chasers, right? And they're just stoking the fires, right? Like then the people who are actually believing in it are like, ooh, there's a bigger audience. And I guess like one of the issues of everyone being online is before, if you were kind of fringe, it was hard for you to find like-minded people, and so your fringe beliefs that were pretty not great start to die off. But here you can always find others.
Because also like, what's the if you really want to go viral, racism is like one of the easiest ways to guarantee it, right? So like if that is like become a huge incentive, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna be racist, and like now I can go viral, and oh, by the way, here's my new mixtape,
Yeah, it's a very interesting world that we're entering into.
Yeah.
But I know we're at time, but any final thoughts, words before we head out?
No, thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Really,
I would have kept going,
fun.
but I know we're close to time.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. And you guys have been crushing. It's been like great to be listening to the pod. Yeah. And also like all the obviously applications. Went in your office last week, the energy there, you can kind of feel it. It's awesome. Yeah.
Nice. And I mean, obviously, like you guys have always been crushing it. So I mean, we still like. I think we debate on your research stuff all the time. So,
Yeah. Glad to hear that.
so
Yeah.
and then we always send it to our founders too.
Nice,
So,
awesome.
good stuff. Yeah, for those that are listening, definitely subscribe to Delphi Research too. They have really good content. All
Awesome.
right, thanks guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yep,
That was
good
fun.
stuff, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You even got raised.
You guys do these?
You even got raised to there.
Yeah.
As always, the views expressed in the Good Game podcast are personal to the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of any other person or entity. Nothing here should be construed or relied upon as investment, legal, tax, or other advice. Thanks for listening to Good Game. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.